Hey everyone, welcome back. So we're getting deeper into eclipse season, and the second eclipse of August is happening on the 27th and 28th, depending on where you are in the world. This is a partial lunar eclipse happening in Pisces at 4 degrees, and it's arriving just weeks after the total solar eclipse in Leo, which took place on August 12th. So while the solar eclipse activated our hearts, this lunar eclipse is activating our minds. Eclipses always happen when the new or full moon falls near the nodal axis. And this one is what's called a full moon north node eclipse. The full moon is sitting really close to the north node in Aquarius at 29 degrees. So this isn't only about an ending or a culmination. It's really about reorienting something in our lives. It's helping us release something that's been holding us back so we can actually move forward on a different path, the Aquarius path, the path that calls for a more authentic and inclusive way of living. You might already be feeling the intensity. Like eclipses really tend to bring extreme pressure. It's kind of like we feel the sense that something has got to give. They also sometimes feel fated, acting as accelerators that force sudden life changes that push us toward our true soul path. Lunar eclipses usually feel more internal and emotional. They're more private and really activate our inner feelings, as well as unresolved matters of our past. While solar eclipses tend to play out a little more externally. So, through people or external events. Now, this Pisces lunar eclipse is really a major turning point, and you may already be feeling it in your nervous system. I know I am. I've definitely been feeling more anxious and kind of on edge this week leading up to the eclipse. So just keep in mind, we're all being called to release something big, and really to release control and to walk away from escapism and to walk away from one-sided relationship dynamics, which, all of these things don't feel easy or comfortable. So you're not alone if you're feeling uneasy right now. I think a lot of us are really in the same boat. Now let's understand Pisces. Pisces is a mutable water sign. It's the last of the 12 zodiac signs. And, in its highest expression, it teaches us something really rare and beautiful. Unconditional love, real empathy, self-compassion, and the ability to accept imperfection in ourselves and in other people. It also dissolves boundaries, including the boundary between us and God, the all, the universe itself. But like every sign, Pisces has a shadow, and that shadow can show up through things like depression, anxiety, addiction, or any form of escapism. It's what happens when we feel overwhelmed by life. So in Pisces, there's this underlying pull to face the existential void. The one that appears when we start to sense there's something beyond our physical body and our human reality. There's something beyond space and time. And it's really hard to stay with that feeling because Pisces isn't really of this world. It's ethereal in nature, and it can really leave us without understanding boundaries, both with other people and with ourselves, because boundaries don't really exist in pure Pisces energy. And that can make it easy to lose ourselves, to feel like we're not in control of our lives, to feel kind of like lost in the abyss. So we find ways to escape, ways not to feel the emotional pain of being human or the terror of that vast unknown that Pisces keeps asking us to face. So if there's anxiety around this, around the possibility of losing ourselves or losing our ego or losing our identity, the one we've built in this human form, we naturally reach for something that numbs us. And that something often becomes addictive. So right now, it's really important to pay close attention to anything you're using to escape yourself, anything you're using to distract your mind or numb what's emotionally like festering underneath the surface. And I'm not just talking about drugs or alcohol, this can include technology. This can include our phones. It can include what we eat. It can include what we watch on TV. And right now, the pull to escape is so strong. So for instance, you may feel yourself like craving more sugar than normal, or wanting to doom scroll on social media, or needing to watch the news or television shows, that you really lose yourself in. So any behavior that gives you like a temporary dopamine hit, something that feels really good in the moment but doesn't last and leaves you needing that next fix, that's what we're talking about here. Pisces is asking us to release these escapist behaviors, not by forcing ourselves into like a rigid, controlled, way of being, but by choosing different ways to leave the ordinary self behind. Sacred ways, spiritual ways. This can include things like meditation, yoga, breath work, anything that lets us connect to something larger than ourselves in quiet stillness. And, the key here is that we have to do this while staying connected to ourselves. We have to be embodied first, grounded in our own body, our own feelings, and our own presence. Because only then can we safely reach for that ethereal realm without disappearing into it and completely detaching from ourselves. So because this is a full moon, the sun and moon are in opposition to one another. The sun is in Virgo at 4 degrees, conjunct Mercury. So our minds are really amped up. Then Uranus in Gemini is throwing a hard square into the mix, creating a T-square with the moon and sun Mercury conjunction. So this energy can bring a kind of mental intensity that feels extreme. When I sat with this in meditation, the image that came through was of, kind of like the mind under so much pressure to change that it felt like the brain itself could almost combust. I know that sounds dramatic, but Uranus really does move at lightning speed. It can create kind of a combustion in our nervous system, and it works directly on the neural pathways in our brains. So during this time, a real rewiring of neurons is taking place, and it can feel like the brain is almost on fire. Our thoughts speed up, our mind can race out of control sometimes. And when we dwell on things or we worry, we feel more anxiety and then obviously more physical exhaustion. And we already talked about the Pisces urge to escape. So pay such close attention if you're noticing yourself wanting to get away from those racing thoughts. The impulse to numb them out will be strong. But there are healthier ways to slow the mind down that don't involve, taking a hit of weed or downing a bottle of wine. We can go on a walk. We can read a good novel. We can talk to someone we trust about what we're actually experiencing. There are healthy outlets that don't require us to shut ourselves down and numb what we're thinking and feeling. And our brains are changing. And because of that, the way we think is changing too. But this isn't an easy process. This is happening to all of us. And so the more honest and authentic we can be with others about what we're going through, the more support we can actually find in each other. Uranus is the planet of sudden awakenings and breakthroughs. And right now, it's doing exactly that inside the mind itself. It doesn't care about our comfort zones. It just breaks us out of them, sometimes abruptly, That means it will be breaking us out of those old familiar thought patterns during the lunar eclipse. Sometimes this happens in more extreme ways than subtle ones with Uranus. You could get unexpected news, or you could just get sudden clarity over something, or a long-held memory that used to cause you immense pain, shame, and suffering might rise up into your awareness, and it might finally have an outlet because you can see it and perceive it differently than you could before. Secrets or information that is ready to come into the light might surface at this time. And again, the full moon in Pisces can really magnify the urge to escape reality. To escape that new information, the mind is ready to receive, which is exactly what we don't want to do, at least not through some of the things we've been talking about. So the antidote is to stay present with yourself, and develop self-compassion as you undergo these changes. Pisces wants you to have compassion for yourself. So let's go a little further into that Pisces archetype and understand that this, what this full moon lunar eclipse is asking us to release. I keep mentioning Pisces and its connection to escapism. But let's think of it like this. Pisces is kind of like the master escape artist of the zodiac. And this is especially strong because its ruler Neptune, the great dissolver, is retrograde in Aries, forming a sextile to Pluto retrograde in Aquarius. Pluto is the planet of death and rebirth. So this eclipse will be exposing the ways we've been checking out and abandoning ourselves. Those old escape routes will be reaching a closure. Really like a death, so to speak. Everyone has a different method of escape. Maybe, like I said, you've been scrolling on your phone for hours every day or every night, so you don't have to feel what's underneath. You don't have to feel your emotions. Maybe you've been pouring another glass of wine the second that anxiety starts to rise, or binge watching show after show until you're too tired to think, or you're lost in the storylines of other people. Some of us escape through food, the late night snacking or the constant grazing, just to kind of stay distracted. Others disappear into their work, staying busy, so there's no space left to feel. It can also look like, show up through fantasizing about a different life, a different relationship, a different version of yourself that doesn't have to deal with the hard stuff, or even spiritual bypassing, like jumping straight into thoughts like everything happens for a reason. So you never have to sit with the actual pain of taking responsibility for why things happen as they do. And even people pleasing can be a form of escape. Keeping everyone else happy so you don't have to face your own needs and your own boundaries. We may also feel more sensitive at this time and prone to absorbing other people's energy right now. So really be aware of your own energetic state and know when you need to protect your energy. So whatever you've been using to avoid anxiety or your sadness or the overwhelm of life and also grief that comes from loss, this eclipse has a way of forcibly removing those patterns. The shadow of Pisces sensitivity can really show up as victimhood, martyrdom, that savior complex, or disappearing into fantasy so you don't have to deal with reality and what's actually in front of you. And because this is hitting the mutable signs so strongly, that's Pisces, Virgo, Gemini, and Sagittarius, look at where 0 to 10 degrees of those signs fall in your chart. If you have planets there, you're getting a direct hit. Your nervous system and your body may already be responding, and you may be feeling this pressure to change something more strongly, but also kind of wanting to escape that pressure. So think of this as the end of a cycle, really the closing out of a life chapter, so a new one can begin, one you are ready to be present for and actively participate in without escaping it in the ways you did before. I mean, this is an invitation to become the active co-creator of your life, to face yourself and life with total honesty rather than running away. And this eclipse is also asking us to let go of Virgo's need to perfect and control. Remember, the Sun and Mercury are conjunct in Virgo. And the more we try to micromanage everything, and every outcome, or force things to go exactly as we want them to go, the more likely it is that these plans will crumble right in front of us, because Virgo wants everything neat and scheduled and under control, but this eclipse is saying that won't fly right now. We have to be open to more spontaneity. So another image that came to me when I was meditating on this eclipse energy was seaweed floating in the ocean. Like, we're needing to develop more of a seaweed in the tide kind of flow, seaweed kind of floats and adjusts. It doesn't grip hard. It just lets the waves carry it back and forth in the current, unconcerned when it's going to reach the shore. And if we trust the universe in the same way and allow it to carry us like this, we will reach the shore exactly when we're supposed to. So practicing detachment from expectations is so important right now. And also, practicing detachment with our partners, our friends, our family, because they might be flip-flopping right now and not following through with what they say they're going to do. So, not taking this personally, not feeling victimized by other people's strange behavior is really important, because this energy can truly bring out some bizarre behavior. It can. So with Mars in Cancer, conjunct the dwarf planet Ceres, we have another layer of understanding of what is being released during the eclipse. This combination ties our drive and our need to take action directly to our emotions and our protective instincts. Ceres is the great nurturer, and she brings deep emotional healing. She can show us where we're carrying old grief from life-altering situations we've been through, and she highlights the places where we need to advocate for ourselves and for the people we love. So there's real healing available here around the parent-child relationship specifically, whether that's with your actual parents, your own children, or even the inner child you're still learning how to care for. And just be aware that this same energy can also tip from caring into controlling or defensive reactions pretty quickly. So we may feel a stronger need to protect what matters, and we may also have to watch where that protection turns toxic or overbearing. Also remember, Mars in Cancer fights through feeling. It can be passive aggressive and really allow its anger to slowly seep out onto those it's closest to. So talking to your loved ones about your feelings rather than letting them build up into resentment and frustration is really a good way to avoid passive aggression in all this, watery energy. And then Venus in Libra is loosely square Mars, Venus in her home sign of Libra. So relationship dynamics are getting so stirred up right now. The need for emotional reciprocity, equal exchange is really important right now. And balance really isn't optional anymore. One-sided patterns that used to feel normal or safe are becoming harder to tolerate. And narcissistic and egocentric relationships honestly might hit a dead end, finally culminating once and for all. Wherever the heart has overgiven or undergiven in partnerships, there may be a big awakening taking place. We might wake up and realize what we're not willing to put up with anymore. Now, eclipses also often activate the deeper karmic patterns we've inherited from our family systems. So the unconscious wounds that have been quietly kind of like shaping our life underneath the surface and controlling how we love, how we relate, how we attach with others, that stuff is coming to light right now so we can finally see it. And yes, seeing our own unhealed wounds and shadow kind of running the show can be extremely painful. So remember, wherever you're feeling the most vulnerable or the most frightened right now, that's usually exactly what you're being asked to sit with, to face, and to fully feel so you can heal it. So what does this actually look like in real life? If you've been escaping painful situations through any of those numbing habits we've been discussing, you might have a real need to face the music. Like kind of a moment where you literally wake up from this illusion you've been living under. And this energy helps you to finally see those patterns clearly and understand what must change. If you've been micromanaging or controlling other people in order to feel safe, those people might start to push back, or you might suddenly refuse to stay under someone else's control. And if there's been a tendency to play the victim or the savior to try to save everyone else from themselves, that role might just stop fitting. It might fall away almost overnight. So this eclipse energy, honestly, this isn't easy. It's not going to be gentle, but it's going to be very purposeful. It's clearing the emotional muck, the emotional residue that we've been carrying around for far too long, so something truer can take its place. We're being invited to shift out of that Virgo, overworking, anxiety, hyperfixation mode and move into Pisces compassion, trust, empathy, and actual divine guidance. So holding on to those outdated beliefs and continuing those old behaviors really isn't going to work in the same way. We're moving toward rapid change, whether we feel ready or not. And we will have to step out of our comfort zone. And I know that can feel so scary. It's scary to me too. But eclipses have this way of enforcing the growth that we've been resisting. They really help us get unstuck. And getting unstuck is a beautiful thing. So I'd love to know what patterns you're noticing right now. What is rising up for you? Please leave it in the comments if you feel called. I really read every single one. And I am sending you so much love as we move through this incredibly powerful time together. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next time. Bye.